Check that you have all of your patterns: front top, front facing, back top, back facing, back collar, front collar, sleeve, sleeve cuff, front waist, back waist, front center skirt, back center skirt, front side skirt, back side skirt. To prepare the collar, sew the front and back collar panels together along the shoulder with a 1 cm seam allowance. Repeat for the remaining collar panels. Sew one set of outer and inner collar panels together along the outer edge with a 1 cm seam allowance. Grab a pair of scissors and trim away the seam allowance, reducing it to 0.5 cm. Turn it inside out and iron well. Top stitch close to the edge. Sew up the darts on the front top panel. Sew the front top to the inner front waist panel with a 1 cm seam allowance. Sew the back top to the inner back waist panel with a 1 cm seam allowance. On the front center and front side skirt panels, mark out all the notches. Sew the front side and center skirt panels with a 1 cm seam allowance, making sure to match up the notches. Repeat for the other side. On the back center and back side skirt panels, mark out the notches. Then sew the panels together with a 1 cm seam allowance, making sure to match up the notches. Repeat for the other side. Sew the front waist to the front skirt panel with a 1 cm seam allowance. Sew the back waist to the back skirt panels with a 1 cm seam allowance. Repeat for the other side. Starting at the waist, sew the zipper along the center back with a 1 cm seam allowance. At the bottom of the zipper, finish up the rest of the center back seam with a 1 cm seam allowance. Sew the front and back top panels together at the shoulder with a 1 cm seam allowance. With the outer collar facing upwards, align the collar to the neckline and sew with a 1 cm seam allowance. At the center front, make sure the collars overlap slightly. On the front panels, push all the seam allowances towards the waist panel and iron well. Align the inner and outer front waist panels, wrong sides together. Then sew in the ditch from the right side. For the back, align the inner and outer back waist panels, right sides together, and sew with a 1 cm seam allowance. Sew the front and back facing panels together along the shoulder with a 1 cm seam allowance. Align the facings to the neckline and sew with a 1 cm seam allowance. Grab a pair of scissors and snip into the seam allowances to reduce tension. Flip open the facing. And understitch on the facings, making sure to catch onto the seam allowances below. To seal up the inner waist panel, sew in the ditch from the right side. Sew the front and back panels together along the side seam with a 1 cm seam allowance. To prepare the sleeve, mark out the notches. Then sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the sleeve crown. Fold the sleeve into half and sew along the side seam with a 1 cm seam allowance. Sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the sleeve hem. To prepare the sleeve cuff, fold it into half and sew along the short edge with a 1 cm seam allowance. Fold into half lengthwise with the right sides facing out and iron well. Baste down the open edges to seal both fabrics shut with a 0.5 cm seam allowance. Gently gather the sleeve hem to match the circumference of the sleeve cuff. Sew the panels together with a 1 cm seam allowance. Overlock the seam. Gather the sleeve to match the circumference of the armhole and sew the panels together with a 1 cm seam allowance, focusing most of the gathers close to the shoulder seam. Fold up the skirt hem by 1.5 cm and iron well. Then top stitch 1 centimeter from the folded edge. And there you have it! Your dress is completed.